The next question says, use the graph of y equals 3 to the x and transformations to sketch the exponential function f of x equals 3 to the x plus 5. Determine the domain and range, also determine the y-intercept, and find the equation of the horizontal asymptote. Okay, so we want to graph the equation f of x equals 3 to the x plus 5 by using transformations. In order to graph with transformations, we have to know what the starting graph looks like, that 3 to the x. So let's take a minute and graph 3 to the x. So I'm going to choose for x -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. I'm going to substitute these values into the equation 3 to the x to see what those y values are. So I'll start with the easy ones first. 3 to the first is 3. 3 to the second is 9. 3 to the 0 is 1. 3 to the -1. -1, or having an exponent that's negative, you're going to do the reciprocal of the base. So the reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. 3 to the -2 will be, because of the negative, we're going to have the reciprocal of 1/3, and then we need to raise it to the second power. 1/3 to the second power will be 1/9. So now we know we have some ordered pairs and we can sketch what the graph looks like. So we have 0, 1, 1, 3, 2, 9, -1 and 1/3, -2 and 1/9. So this is what the curve looks like. We do have a horizontal asymptote that is along the x-axis or at y equals 0. And so now we have an idea of what 3 to the x looks like. And then we want to know what f of x equals 3 to the x plus 5 looks like. So this plus 5 is a transformation. And because it is adding 5, we know that that is going to be a shift. And because it's on the outside, it's a vertical shift. And because it's a plus, we know it's going to go up, and plus 5, up 5. So if we take this graph over here and shift it up 5 units, we're going to get our graph. So instead of crossing at 0, 1, we're going to shift that up 5 to being at 6. This point right here, which is 1, 3, will go up 5 to be at 8. 1, 8. Sorry, is that right? 3 plus 5 is 8. Yeah. Okay, and then on the other side, we have this point right here, which is at 1/3. So if we take 1/3 and move it up 5, I can't do that math in my head very easily. 5 plus 1/3, well, that's 5 1/3, which is the same thing as 16/3. So that point will go to -1, 5 1/3, so maybe about right here. That horizontal asymptote that we talked about that was at y equals 0 will also get shifted up 5. So from 0, it'll get shifted up to 5. Now we have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 5. So then we can draw the curve, and we get this picture right here. Now, going back to the directions that we were given here, it says use the coordinates of the 3 points of the graph y equals 3 to the x to just determine the corresponding points on the graph of f of x equals 3 to the x plus 5. We did this. We figured out the original points over here. We had -1 and 1/3, and that's what they gave us here. 0, 1 was another point, and 1, 3 was another point. And we showed where those points moved. Those points moved up five spaces. So this 1 moved up to a 6. The 3 moved up to an 8. And the 1/3 went to 5 1/3, or 16/3. Okay, let's check what else they asked us to do here. Determine the domain and range. So when I find domain, I hold my ruler vertically and I go from left to right. And as you go from left to right, you'll notice with this graph, the first time you hit would be at -infinity, and the last time you hit is at +infinity. So the domain of our function is all real numbers or -infinity to infinity. And that's going to be the case with all exponential functions. They have a domain of all real numbers. For the range, I'm going to hold my ruler horizontally and go from bottom to top. The first time you hit the graph will be just after that horizontal asymptote at 5, and then it goes on to infinity. So the range starts at 5 and goes to infinity, and we're going to use a parenthesis on the 5 because our graph is never going to reach the asymptote. It'll get closer and closer but never reach it. All right, so what else did it ask? Determine the y-intercept. Okay, to find a y-intercept, you let x equal 0. So our function f of 0, 3 to the 0 plus 5, 3 to the 0 is 1, 5 plus 1 is 6. So that is our y-intercept, and that's also the point that we found earlier here. All right, so we found the y-intercept. What else? Find the equation of the horizontal asymptote. That's what we found right here. So it started off at y equals 0. We shifted it up 5, became y equals 5. So the equation of our horizontal asymptote is y equals 5.